It was supposed to be a good day. I had spent the whole week planning a small birthday party for my son, Caleb, just balloons, a homemade cake, and a few people who said they loved us. He was turning 6. He'd been counting down the days like it was Christmas, running around the apartment with his paper crown and yelling, "I'm 6! I'm 6!" When my parents called and said they wanted to come, I froze. They hadn't visited in over a year, not since I moved out and refused to keep letting them control me. Mom said over the phone, "We'll bring your sister and the kids. A family should be together for a child's birthday, even if it's yours. Even if it's yours." That line hit me hard. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I hesitated, but finally agreed. I thought, maybe, just maybe they'd changed. Maybe seeing their grandson would soften them. They arrived 2 hours late, sweeping into my apartment like they owned it. My mother in her fur coat, perfume so thick it made the air heavy. My father, towering, silent, eyes scanning everything like he was inspecting damage. My sister Julia followed, perfect as always, her 2 kids in matching outfits, holding gift bags twice the size of Caleb's cake. "Still living here?" Mom said, glancing around my small living room. "At least it's clean, though I guess when you don't have much, it's easier to keep tidy." Caleb ran toward them, all smiles. "Grandma! Grandpa!" He held out his hand, showing the small car I'd bought him with my tips from the diner. "Look what Mommy got me." Mom's lips curved into a half smile. "How nice," she said, brushing past him. She turned to Julia's kids. "Come here, my angels. Let Grandma see my real grandbabies." I froze. My father didn't even blink. Julia smirked, adjusting her son's shirt. "Mom, don't say that," she said lightly. "You'll hurt her feelings." Mom waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, please. Caleb's from that man who ran off, isn't he? You can't build family from mistakes." Caleb's smile faded. He looked at me, confused. "Mommy, am I not family?" My throat tightened. "Of course you are, baby." But the damage was done. When it was time to cut the cake, Mom insisted we move everything to the backyard. "Better lighting," she said, but I knew why. She didn't want the neighbors seeing her at my cheap apartment party. We set the cake on the old wooden table. Caleb stood in front, crown on his head, cheeks glowing from excitement. He closed his eyes, ready to blow the candles. That's when Julia's son pushed him. "Move. Grandma said only real grandkids can stand near the cake." Caleb stumbled, almost crying. I turned sharply. "Ethan, don't push him!" Julia laughed. "Kids play rough. Let them be." But Caleb looked up, his voice small. "Grandma, can I please?" Mom interrupted. "No, you can't. You're not part of this picture." Then, before I could move, my father grabbed Caleb by the arm. "You heard your grandmother. Stand over there if you can't behave." He dragged my son toward the garbage can near the fence and pointed. "Stand here. If you want to watch, that's your spot." Caleb's eyes filled with tears. "Grandpa, it's my birthday." My father's face hardened. "Then learn to act like someone worth celebrating." The world stopped spinning. I heard Julia laughing, her kids clapping as if nothing happened. Mom fixing her hair and saying, "Smile for the photo." I walked up to them, trembling. "Stop. You're not touching that cake. This is Caleb's birthday." Mom glared at me. "Watch your tone. You're embarrassing yourself." Dad turned. "You should be grateful we even showed up. Maybe if you'd married right, he wouldn't have to share attention with kids who matter." That word, matter, broke something inside me. Caleb was still standing there on that garbage can, his small hands shaking, tears streaking down his cheeks. I went to him, lifted him into my arms, and whispered, "You matter to me. Always." Behind me, I heard Mom say, "Go ahead, run off like you always do." I turned and said quietly, "No. This time, I'm not running. I'm done." I grabbed the cake, Caleb's gifts, and walked inside. I locked the door and could still hear their laughter through the window. Caleb looked up at me, voice cracking. "Mommy, did I do something bad?" I knelt down, cupping his face. "No, sweetheart, they did." That night, after I put him to bed, I sat in the dark, shaking. Their words wouldn't stop echoing. Real grandkids, mistake, worth celebrating. But in that darkness, I made a promise. They'd see one day what real meant. They'd learn that love wasn't measured in bloodlines or money. And when that day came, I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't fight. I'd just let them feel the weight of what they'd thrown away. That was the night I decided. I wouldn't let Caleb grow up believing he was less. They had humiliated my child on his birthday, but one day soon, they'd remember that day and regret ever calling him anything less than family. You said, "Now give me section 2. ChatGPT said, the next morning, Caleb woke up quieter than usual. No singing, no asking for pancakes, no running through the hall with his paper crown. He sat on the couch holding his toy car, the same one he'd proudly shown to my parents before they broke his heart. "Do you think Grandma hates me?" he asked softly. His voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. I froze. I wanted to tell him no, that she didn't mean it, but lying to him would only make the wound deeper later. I sat beside him, brushing his hair back. "She doesn't understand love like we do, baby. That's all." He nodded slowly, not convinced, and whispered, "Next year, can we not have a party?" That moment killed me more than their cruelty ever did. After they left yesterday, my phone had blown up with texts. "Mom, you embarrassed yourself." "Julia, you ruined the night for the kids." "Dad, we're done with your drama." I didn't reply, not one word. Instead, I sat beside Caleb all night until he fell asleep holding my hand. In the days that followed, I went through every stage: sadness, anger, disbelief, then something colder: clarity. They'd never change. They didn't see my child as family because they never saw me as one either. I was just a reminder of what didn't fit into their perfect world. Ryan, my neighbor who sometimes watched Caleb when I worked late, noticed something was off. "You okay, Lily?" he asked one evening as we crossed paths outside. I hesitated, then told him everything. The party, the garbage can, the words, the laughter. He clenched his jaw. "They did that to a kid? Their own grandson?" "Yeah," I said, in front of everyone. He shook his head. "That's not family. That's rot pretending to be blood." I didn't reply, but something about his words stayed with me. Rot pretending to be blood. That's exactly what they were. That weekend, I opened my laptop and started something I never thought I'd do. I began a small baking business. Not for money, not for ambition, but for Caleb. Because he deserved to grow up surrounded by kindness, by people who celebrated him, even for the smallest things. It started with cupcakes, then custom birthday cakes, then orders from neighbors. Within a few months, the same backyard where they humiliated him was filled with balloons, happy kids, and laughter. But this time, it was for other children who didn't have fancy parties or grandparents who cared. Caleb would help me frost cupcakes, smiling again. "Do you think we can make one for Grandma next time?" he asked one day, halfway through decorating. I froze, then smiled gently. "No, sweetheart, we'll make one for someone who deserves it." His little head tilted. "Like who?" "Like us," I said. As months turned into years, our small baking business became something people in the neighborhood loved. Parents would tell me how much warmth Caleb brought when he greeted them at the door. He'd always smile and say, "Everyone deserves a cake." But the peace didn't last forever. 2.5 years after that birthday, I got a call from Julia. I almost didn't pick up. "Lily," she said, her voice cracking. "Mom's in trouble." I didn't speak. I just listened. She lost everything. Dad passed away 6 months ago, and Mom spent all the insurance money trying to fix the house. She's sick now. The bank's taking everything. She asked for you." "For me?" I said flatly. Julia hesitated. "She said you're doing well now, that you're successful. She needs your help, Lily. She has nowhere to go." I looked at the photo of Caleb on the counter, missing teeth, frosting on his cheeks, happiness all over his little face. "Did she remember his birthday this year?" I asked quietly. Julia went silent. "She didn't even know the date, did she?" I said. Julia whispered, "Please, she's our mother." I closed my eyes. No, Julia. She was yours. Mine stopped being a mother the day she made my child stand on garbage. I hung up. That night, I tucked Caleb into bed and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful, the kind of peace my parents never let me have. Outside, the wind howled softly through the trees, and I thought of that backyard, the laughter, the shame, the promise I made. They had taught me cruelty without remorse, but they were about to learn something else, what it feels like to be on the outside, watching everyone else eat the cake you're not invited to touch. That was the moment my revenge began, not through anger, but through silence that cut deeper than any slap could. Because this time, I wasn't the humiliated daughter. I was the woman who remembered everything. 2 months after Julia's call, I saw their names again, this time on the community donation board. Someone had listed, "Help for the Carter family. Medical debt, housing crisis." I stood in front of it for a long time, not out of pity, out of disbelief that the people who once humiliated my child in front of a cake now wanted strangers' compassion. They had spent their lives worshiping appearances, but now the same neighbors they used to impress were whispering, "Isn't that the family who disowned their daughter?" The irony was too poetic to ignore. That night, as I closed the bakery, I saw an old car parked outside. Inside was my mother, smaller than I remembered, clutching a blanket like it was her last shield. I walked over slowly, opened the passenger door, and stood there in silence. Her eyes met mine, hollow, red, the arrogance long gone. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "Julia won't take me in." I didn't speak. She looked down at her trembling hands. "I was wrong, Lily, about everything, about you, about Caleb." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted us to look like a perfect family." I exhaled slowly, remembering Caleb's tiny hands shaking on that garbage can, the laughter, the way she'd smiled while my son cried. "You destroyed perfect the day you made a 6-year-old feel like trash." Tears filled her eyes. "Please, I'm cold." I reached into my pocket and handed her an address on a small card, a shelter I'd been donating to since the bakery started making profit. "They'll help you." They helped people who actually deserved a second chance. She took it with shaking fingers. "You won't even give your mother a roof?" I met her gaze. "You never gave your grandson a home." For a moment she looked like she wanted to fight back, to find that cruel spark she'd always used to control me. But it wasn't there anymore. All that was left was a hollow woman sitting in a car that wouldn't start. As I walked away, I heard her whisper, "I'm sorry." I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Some apologies arrive too late, not because you hate the person, but because you've already healed beyond the wound they caused. When I came home, Caleb was waiting on the couch with his homework. He looked up and smiled. "Mom, did you see Grandma today?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. I saw her." He tilted his head. "Is she still mean?" I smiled softly. "No, just lost." He reached over and hugged me tight. "That's okay. We're not." I closed my eyes and let that sink in. We weren't lost. We never were. We were just waiting to outgrow the pain they planted. A week later, one of the bakery regulars told me she'd seen my mother volunteering at the same shelter I'd sent her to. She was serving meals to families, quiet, polite, unrecognizable. I didn't visit her. I didn't need to, because my revenge had already happened. Not through shouting, not through humiliation, not even through revenge itself, but through peace, through the life she swore I'd never build. That year, on Caleb's 9th birthday, the backyard was full again, kids laughing, frosting everywhere, music playing. Caleb stood beside me, a small crown on his head, eyes bright. "Mom," he said, "this is the best birthday ever." I smiled. "It's the only kind you'll ever have, baby. One where you belong." And as the candles flickered in front of him, I realized something that made me finally breathe easy. The best revenge isn't payback. It's raising the child they threw away into someone they'll never stop wishing they hadn't lost. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.